And with that, boys, the Detroit Pistons are in a position of where they have young assets, where they have cap space, and where they're looking to potentially get better. Troy, Jeff, let's just get this out of the way before we hear it in our Twitter mentions. Should the Detroit Pistons go after Donovan Mitchell? And Troy, why not? What is going on? I want to welcome you from Half Court for today, Wednesday, June 8th. I am your host, Sean Murphy, alongside my boy, Jeff Ifrady. Jeff, how's it going, my guy?
Oh, it's going, baby. We got finals this week, which annoys me because these games are so spaced out that the NBA is milking us like a cow, but I'm okay with it.
Dude, we got to go. I have to wait till Wednesday. We have to wait until as of this episode actually dropping.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
If it goes 7 games, doesn't it go till Father's Day potentially? I mean, we could be here for another 20 days, but.
Oh, yeah, 100%. This could go out for a little while. I mean, as of right now, the current schedule, the current land of it, I mean, we could go until the end of the month. It looks like June 19th is how long this can go until. So we got some time. But speaking of having some time, I always enjoy having some time with my guy. It's Mr. Troy Troy coming from the new place, from the new pad. How's it going, man?
Going good, Sean. New city, new state. Looking forward to watching Game 3. As this recording, you're right, with the drag, with the lag, it's about two days now. So Wednesday. Look forward to watching Game 3. It'll be fun having the series back in Boston, but I've really had some fun watching Games 1 and 2. So we've been really blessed with a good finals this year, Sean. So I'm doing good.
Oh, we were blessed with such a good finals, and let's just dive in and talk about it, gentlemen, because since the last episode of From Half Court, we have had not one, but 2 finals games that have happened, and 2 monster runs in the second half by each team to ultimately get them on top. And now we have a series that's going to Boston tied at 1-1. Now, Troy, you were very confident that this Golden State team was going to win the finals, and you did not give Boston much of a chance. As someone that was as confident as you were, are you feeling as confident now as you did before the series started? And what are some of your initial takeaways from these first 2 games?
And give me the updated percentage.
Yeah, give me the updated percentages, Troy. Yeah, what is it? Because it was like, absolutely, 95-5 before or something like
85, that? 15, 85.
Oh,
15.
That's better.
I wasn't going to get. Hey, that's a lot different than 95-5.
That is true. That is true.
It's a little bit. All right.
So, I'm definitely still confident, but not as confident. I'd probably go 65-35 now in favor of Golden State. I would say that Jordan Poole, I still expected a little bit more out of him on Golden State's side, but I think he's been playing at least somewhat decent in Game 2. But Wiggins, you're going to need Wiggins, I think, if the series goes to 6 or 7, all 6 or 7 games, in my opinion. You're going to need Wiggins to step up big. But what I've seen from Steph and Clay, I've been satisfied with, especially Steph. I think if the Golden State Warriors win the finals, I think Steph easily wins MVP. I mean, he's just playing some of his best basketball that haven't seen in a while. So, but obviously Jason Tatum had a great game last night, even though they lost. I thought he had 20 in the first half, I think, around there. And Al Horford, White, stepping up as well. So these are guys that have been role players all year, like Horford and White, and they're just really, really impacting their team now. And I did say last episode, if Boston's going to win the series, it's going to be because of those guys impacting their stars.
Right.
So,
well,
we know what we're going to get out of Brown and Tatum, right?
Yeah, Al Horford's been doing this for 15 years. I mean, this is just who Al Horford is. You know what I mean? And Derek White, talk about a key acquisition at the trade deadline. A guy who can come in and play defense, hit important shots, and is now one of your most important role players in a final series. So he's really stepping up and paying dividends. I mean, we look at the trade deadline, and a lot of the trades that we thought were really going to be game changing were going to be the moves where, you know, James Harden went from Brooklyn to Philly, but now you could argue perhaps the most impactful trade at the deadline, at least in the interim, is Derek White. So that's something that's interesting. But in addition, I would say from my perspective as someone that, you know, was leaning a little more 50-50 at the time, you know, at the time of recording the pod, I maybe was leaning a little Golden State. I then on the Woodward Pistons table talk last week said I picked Boston to win in 7. And after those first 2 games, I feel more confident about my Boston prediction. I still think these teams are really evenly matched. And I think what's ultimately going to decide this series is what Jason Tatum we get going forward. Because in my opinion, I think Jason Tatum will get more confident at home. I think, you know, in a Garden where the fans are going to be going crazy, I think it's going to be really good for them to be in that environment, and it gets some confidence on their end, have the fans behind them. I think it's going to be interesting to see what Jordan Poole and what Andrew Wiggins we get on the road, because you're never worried about role players stepping up at home. That's where they're comfortable, right? But what other players on the Warriors are going to step up in Boston to really actually help make this series? Because if you look at how Golden State, like where they had to go on the road throughout the playoffs, like not really many fires they've had to go through as far as difficult road climates. But Boston, in my opinion, is a whole different step up than where they've been. So I think this is going to be a really interesting series. Jeff, what about you, man? Where are you landing after the first 2?
Well, I picked Warriors in 6, and I'm still confident in my pick. I think even though the Boston Celtics are 5-4 at home, I think they should still be confident going into the Garden. I will say this, though. What I've noticed about these finals is both teams, their coaches, Ime Udoka and Steve Kerr, instill so much confidence in their players that you're seeing it in game 1. Al Horford, Marcus Smart, and Derek White combined for really 90% of their production from 3. Game 2, you saw it from the Warriors side, and the lack thereof from the Boston side. Marcus Smart, Al Horford, Derek White was there, but they, like Troy said, the others, that's really what's going to, they're both great teams, but it's a collective thing. Andrew Wiggins showed up, in game 1, didn't play so well in game 2, but Jordan Poole stepped up.
Right.
One player I'm waiting to step up, and I think will have a great game, even though they're going to the Garden, is Klay Thompson. If Klay Thompson can put together a good performance, I mean, it seems like it's been Steph Curry and then a big drop off and then the rest. He needs a consistent second, a Robin to his Batman, if you will.
Right.
And Jason Tatum, despite, playing as well as he did in game 2, he had the worst plus minus in NBA Finals history, which is crazy to think about. I don't think that's his fault, but that the stats are the stats. The Celtics need the others, and that's going to be the big deciding factor, like you said, going into the Garden.
Yeah, without a doubt. I didn't like some of Boston's shot selection in the second half of game 2.
Yeah.
I think if there's anything that they're going to have to figure out is how they can get some easier offense for themselves, which with guys like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, they should be able to get easy offense occasionally. I mean, that's the benefit of having guys like that. So, I'm definitely interested to see, how they respond and what the atmosphere is going to be like in games 3 and 4. I mean, this isn't a finals, in my opinion, where there's a clear-cut better team. I don't think there's one that we can look at right now and it says this team's a clear favorite. This series, we heard. Okay, I love Adam Baydoun to death, but this man said this series is over after game 2, and I just don't know how you could look at this series. And far from it. It might have looked pretty bleak in the third quarter as far as the blowout. With Golden State outscoring Boston 35-14, but didn't Boston just do the same exact thing to Golden State the last game? But we called it a fluke when Boston does it. I mean, sure, Golden State's known for going on runs in the third quarter, but again, these two teams match up very evenly, and so far, in my opinion, have matched up very evenly.
And something I thought about too, Sean, is, I mean, I'm maybe contradicting myself here with this statement, but with Boston's fans and the energy that can come with the Garden, I mean, it's possible that after games 3 and 4, we could have 3-1 Boston. I'm not predicting it. I don't think it'll happen, but at least I want to throw that out there that it's possible.
Right. I mean, it's entirely possible that Boston could win games 3 and 4. It's also entirely possible that Golden State could win games 3 and 4.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the kind of finals it is. Like literally anything can happen. I still think this series is going 6 or 7 just because of the physicality, because of how both teams can make it difficult for the other on the offensive end. I mean, even though Steph had a great game and Jordan Poole finally was able to get something going. I mean, guys, Wiggins was 4 for 12. Clay was 4 for 19. Like Clay was 1 for 8 from the 3. And again, not going to overreact to that. Clay is Clay. He can come out and he can turn it on any given night. But Golden State is going to need more than Steph Curry in order to go in and get these wins. And especially when going on the road, Jordan Poole is going to have to step up. Yeah. Like, because that defense gets tougher when you have 20,000+ screaming fans on your side now too. So that's going to be a really different environment. And I'm interested to see how the Golden State Warriors respond, how the Boston Celtics respond. This is an awesome finals. This is my favorite finals matchup we've had in 10 years. I love it. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah, and because of how even the teams are, and I think one thing that is the difference is from this Golden State team is past, they have more younger guys, and I feel like the veterans, instead of Steph, Clay, and Draymond being the younger guys, and you have Iguodala, Zaza, and all these guys, they're now the veterans. So that's why when they're going to Boston, like we're so used to the old Golden State team, we're like, well, they can steal both games on the road. You have to see how Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole, and these guys show up at Boston. Because if it's just Steph Curry and Clay, I don't even know if that's enough. I mean, you're going to need everybody to contribute. So I can't wait to see Draymond Green, though, because the refs are letting them play. Right. I mean, the refs are letting these guys get physical. And Draymond last game, the effect he had mentally on some of these Boston players, I know it doesn't stand out in the stat sheet, but after some of these altercations, players didn't play as well as they did before. So Draymond's doing something right.
Yeah, I think, first of all, from the Warriors standpoint, I think the way that we see them as far as like how we've seen them play these first 2 games, can we at least all agree that this isn't the same Warriors team that we saw in the finals all these years?
Oh, yeah.
This is a different Warriors team. It just is. I mean, first of all, you in some ways better from a 3-point attacking standpoint, having Jordan Poole, the spark plug coming off your bench, potentially 3 Splash Brothers, terrifying. But then I think where this team just isn't the same is, first of all, the depth is definitely better than where it was at certain points. However, I mean, is anyone on that Golden State bench other than Gary Payton and maybe in Poole some nights? Is any one of those guys scaring you? I mean, Bielitsa can make some effective threes.
Otto Porter has only been playing really well, in the finals. He's been shooting the lights out, but he was a pretty good addition. But like you said, there's no championship DNA on this team, really.
Right.
Besides, the main 3. So that's the issue.
Looney, I think we need to see a little more out of him too, because he really impacted that Memphis series, I thought, as well as even one time in the Dallas series as well. And we're seeing him a little bit, but not as much as those series. So.
I think what's ultimately going to decide this series is which team is more consistently intense on the defensive end, because I think you saw an intensity in Golden State in game 2 that you didn't see in game 1.
You saw it in Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. 100%. I think Boston, I think at moments their defense were firing on all cylinders and they were making things uncomfortable for Golden State. And then there've also been moments where they've let Golden State get whatever the heck that they want. So in my opinion, it's going to come down to the consistency on those little things. Who's going to get the hustle rebounds? Who's going to get the second chance points? And the other thing, Boston, I think the reason why Jason Tatum, like he didn't have a ton of like he only had 4 turnovers, but like there were a lot of key turnovers and key mistakes and just a lot of things that were happening throughout that game. Like you can't give the Warriors points, like easy points off turnovers. You just can't.
No.
And when you allow them to get in the transition and hit those threes, it's chalked.
Sucks the air out of the room, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw it watching a game. That's why Ime Udoka looked furious at times, but they understand what they have to do, and I think that's what's going to make things a lot easier. Is you're not going to have Jason Tatum shooting half your 3-point shot makes. Like you're going to have an abundance of players playing well at home. So this series is only going to get more interesting. People who say it's over, I don't understand how you can come to that conclusion.
1-1.
Considering, and it's both games were neck and neck. Even when the Warriors won some of these quarters, I mean, you could say the Warriors have won a majority of the quarters out of the 8 quarters. You could say they won 6 or 7, but the Boston
Celtics were also at
right
home.
There. I was going to say, well, number one, they're at home, but number two, even when the Warriors won the first quarter last game, the Celtics were down 1. Like they were not worried. They were fine.
Exactly. So we still have 5 games potentially left, and we're going to learn a lot about these players. I think one thing we can't question on the Boston side, I mean, even though Marcus Smart, his shooting wasn't there, and like, you want to see more, like, like that's like, he's going to be a real X factor for them. It's like you've said, it's going to be those other guys. How do they step up? How do they consistently contribute? But guys, enough about the finals for now, because it's that time of the show where we talk about our boys, the red, white, and blue, the Detroit Pistons, the French Detroit team that we all wanted to happen that didn't happen because, Sekou isn't even in the league anymore, and Killian might be behind him. But anyway, no, I'm just kidding. But anyway,
whoa.
It was a joke.
That's a statement, bro.
Get him. It's a joke. Killian, we love you. Anyway, the Detroit Pistons. Now, Donovan Mitchell reportedly is in a state of being shocked and shaken and concerned of where the Utah Jazz franchise is going moving forward because of the resignation of head coach Quinn Snyder. And with that, boys, the Detroit Pistons are in a position of where they have young assets, where they have cap space, and where they're looking to potentially get better. Troy, Jeff, let's just get this out of the way before we hear it in our Twitter mentions. Should the Detroit Pistons go after Donovan Mitchell? And Troy, why not?
And the reason why not is, Sean, is because I think if we are going to get some kind of star player, we should be probably, if we're looking to cash in, we've used that word on this podcast quite a bit of time, cashing in. We got to probably look at that tier 5 player. And what I mean by that is if you look at a 5-tier NBA pyramid of players, well, 1 being like a role player and a 5 being a superstar, Donovan Mitchell is like towards the bottom of a 4, in my opinion. A tier 4 type of player in the league. He's definitely a star, but we saw a not so good Utah team in this postseason, a postseason that saw a lot of turmoil with Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. And with that, we didn't really see the impact that I thought any superstar, that word superstar, should be used with a guy like Donovan Mitchell. So,
I think offensively, we've never questioned his game. Right.
But contributing on even a playoff team to win, we have not seen that part. And that's why he will forever be a lower 4 tier for me. So he's just not worth it.
What are
the
these
money's
tiers?
the money's
What's
too
a
high.
4 tier?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1 being role player, 2 being starter, 3 being starter contributor, 4 being star, 5 being superstar.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Tier,
all right.
tier 4.
All right. I like it. Okay. All right. That's a valid statement.
And I got to sprinkle this in there too. Didn't Donovan Mitchell have like 57 in a playoff game?
Mm-hmm.
So he is a bucket. He's a hooper. We know this. But I have to kind of humble Pistons fans right now. It's sad. I mentioned this on Big D when I went on there, Big D Energy on Woodward Sports. It's sad that we have to attempt to trade for guys that we could have drafted Isn't that the saddest thing in the world when a guy that you could have drafted is now getting paid $30+ million, and now we have an opportunity to trade for him? And certainly that's a player that's the big fish I'm talking about. So it's according to me and what I think is a big fish. That's right there is Donovan Mitchell. But let's be realistic for a second. Do you think the Pistons, number one, I think Donovan Mitchell is going to have a say in something in where he goes. It has to. I mean, players, teams screw players over all the time, but I feel like in this situation, Donovan's going to have a word to say in it. And number two, what makes people think that, Sadiq Bey, and even if they give away Sadiq, Killian, a couple first round picks, I mean, that's a lot, number one. And number two, you're going to give that away and jump ahead of anybody else attempting to trade for Donovan Mitchell. Sorry, no. There's going to be multiple suitors. It's not as easy as everybody thinks. So realistically, I don't think it's going to happen. But again, you like, the Pistons to pick up the phone. I think you can respect that, to call Utah and be like, okay, how much? What is the asking price for Donovan Mitchell? But do I think it'll get done? No.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and here's the reality, guys, because we know what the asking price is. Because according to The Athletic and according to multiple sources, multiple teams have asked the Utah Jazz about the availability of Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah,
and they've said no. And they've also told them that it would take a monstrous offer to acquire Donovan Mitchell. So you're talking about a monstrous offer, right? I saw a trade proposal of Killian, Sadiq, Jeremy, and a first. That's not even close.
Maybe 2-3 first along with those.
And we just trade away our kind of future.
2 firsts.
Yeah, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like an Anthony Davis move. Like the Lakers, you'd have to give up like a Brandon Ingram, Lonzo, Josh Hart, and multiple first round picks. Like it's not going to be.
This reminds me of a Paul George type move. Where,
another one.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a guy I would compare like games to as far as peak Paul George. I think would be peak Donovan Mitchell. I mean, excellent player, but I don't even know if that's what we're looking for on our team.
We don't know if he's at this point, Donovan, and I respect his game and I love his game, but I just don't think we're a Donovan Mitchell away from, getting to the championship. So
now, if this was 2 years from now, or even 3 years from now,
might be more attractive.
Exactly. Might be a different conversation.
But there could be a star in 3 years from now that we'd want to trade for anyway. So let's hold off.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like that type of star is like, if we are at a point where we've seen this Pistons team make progress already and start some base of winning, at that point you cash in. You need to see what the Phoenix Suns saw in that bubble run. You need to see what the Clippers saw when they brought in when they assembled all of that talent, right? You have to see what these teams saw before you could truly cash in. And I think with Troy Weaver, it's one of those things where, I mean, yes, you certainly want to improve your team this offseason, and you have the cap space, you have assets, but why risk the future of this thing for one guy who's a really good player? But as Troy said, is he the type of guy that's going to be the best player in a championship team, or even the second best player in a championship team? I don't know. Especially with how everything's gone in Utah, I have my sincerest doubts. I really do.
And you've already seen it now up until this point. I'm not calling him a diva, but I'm just saying if he's unhappy, he's going to get out. So you're telling me you're going to trade 3 first-round picks. I'm just hypothetically, it probably would be way more than this, but 3 first-round picks, Killian, Sadiq, Jeremy, whatever it is, and then he gets here and you suck. Let's say you make the 8 seed, you get bounced, or the 7 seed, whatever it is. Got to play in the play-in tournament. And let's say you don't have a pick for the next 3 years. Like you're banking your future on Donovan Mitchell. And that's a scary thing. It really is. That's why it's big. We're excited to talk about free agency because you can just acquire these guys and pay them when you're trading for a disgruntled star of the caliber like Donovan Mitchell. It ain't 2K. This ain't 2K.
Or hear me out. Why not just draft your own guard?
And there you go, on a rookie contract.
Yeah, on a rookie contract for under $10 million a year, and let them develop along with Cade and let them marinate. It's like why throw it in the microwave when the crock pot's right there? You know what I mean? It might not be ready as quickly, but you know when it's done, it's going to be done right.
Ivy question mark?
Hey, I would not say no to Jaden Ivey. That's as of right now. I don't know where you guys are feeling. Still, my number one's Jaden Ivey. Jeff, I already know you're. Jeff, can I ask what? So I know that you're not phased as much by the uncertainty of Shaden Sharp.
Yep.
But what are the things that are overcoming you to make him the number one? What are those? What are the things that you have seen that make him your number one prospect for the Pistons at 5?
Well, number one, I've been following him for a while just because he's entertaining to watch. Number one, but I'm intrigued. I think it's the player I'm most intrigued by and I'm most excited about. And Jaden Ivey's certainly exciting. That's why every time we mention Jaden Ivey, I'm like, all right, I'm cool with it. And I love the pick. I just think in terms of fit and the potential of what Shaden Sharp could be, because remember, guys, you're banking on potential. You're not banking on, like, we're hoping Jaden Ivey improves his 3-point shot. We're hoping, you know what I mean, all these things happen. So it's about taking a raw prospect and turning him into something you think they're going to be. And I think Shaden Sharp, with what he brings raw, his 6'6", like I said, 7-foot wingspan, I get it. There's question, especially in high school, you can't really, those things aren't going to translate, but everybody who's saying he reminds you most of J.R. Smith. And I think J.R. Smith is a great player, but I think if the only thing you're comparing is they both came from high school, I just think that comparison's a little, I mean,
well, I think player comps suck in general, Jeff.
Yeah,
I talked about this before, but I mean, the other thing with Sharp, I mean, it's hard to compare him to anybody because, again, he's by far the guy we have the least amount of footage on. There's nothing like, I mean, if we're going to make any player comparisons, I see him as a Jalen Green. I mean, just because that's the most recent guy that I've seen that athletically, wingspan, numbers, everything matches up with Jalen Green, in my opinion, as far as what type of player they can be. And so I think they're very similar in that light. But Troy, go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
And real quick before you go, Troy, just to add in, Jalen Green, remember the knock on him playing in the G League? He's playing against scrubs in the G League, and now he was a great player anyway. I get there's uncertainty that you did not watch Shaden Sharp, but I promise you, there's not much of a difference. I mean, he'll get more experience from playing 1 year of college basketball, but people act like Kyrie Irving played how many games at Duke? Like 6 games. And he still went number one.
Some guys can just come in and hoop regardless.
Yes. And I'm not in the reason why I want to swing for the damn fences. So go on, Troy.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
I'm going to go with Ivy too, Sean, unless Keegan Murray's still on the board. I think Ivy does have the highest upside as far as potential, like Jeff said, and I think we can develop him a lot, especially with Cade and Dwayne Casey as the coach. I think he does make impact. I think long term he's a great fit for the team.
Do you mean Ivy or Sharp?
Ivy.
Yeah, Ivy.
Okay.
Ivy.
Okay.
I would probably hold off on Sharp. Sorry, Jeff. But then Keegan Murray, if Murray's on the board at 5, if somehow Sacramento goes with Ivy or goes with Shaden Sharp, which is 2 possibilities, I would go with Keegan Murray because he's the most NBA ready. He just is. That long frame, that long wingspan, I think he can just instantly impact this team. And we do have to get rid of Jeremy Grant then too. So go ahead, Sean.
But do we need the most NBA ready? Like I know we want to be better this year, but again, that's why I if Keegan Murray's on the board, like I said, I'm not opposed to taking him, but I don't want the reason to be because he can just come in and make us a better team right now. You know what I mean? I want it to be for the long term. What do you would add long term? If we were deep playoff runs, I could see that's where Keegan Murray brings his value.
Right.
But I don't want to draft anyone based off of what we're going to be this year. I just don't.
What you just sit in the middle part of, let's say a long playoff series and he can contribute. I mean, isn't that long term too? That's more. Well,
than it is. But again, I just again with Keegan Murray, he might be the most NBA ready player right now. But my argument is it? I mean, isn't Jaden Ivey close? Sure. I would say it's not far off.
And Sean, he still is my number one. Ivy's my number one. I'm just saying if Ivy's not on the board at 5, or if he is and Sacramento goes to Sharp, I'm probably gonna plug there. But I see Murray going at 4. So I think we're gonna have Ivy, and I'm okay with that. So
yeah, without a doubt. And I think it's definitely, in my opinion, it's down to 2 guys. I think it's Murray or it's Murray or Ivy based on whoever's going to be on the board. I could see a scenario where Detroit gets that 7th pick and Sharp's available there. I could see Sharp going as high as 4. Really anything can happen. That top 3 to me is not changing. But again, like, we're going to have a lot of discussion. A lot of stuff will be learned. I'm sure a lot of reporting will be done. And through that, we're going to have a much clearer picture coming the next couple of weeks, where we're going to have a much better idea of who's going.
But I will say, Sean, just one last thing to close here. If somehow the Pistons bring in Sharp for a workout and he does phenomenal.
Oh, they're definitely bringing him in for a workout.
Then they're bringing him in. Yes.
Well, okay. But also on the flip side, the Pistons also made a decision on a draft prospect solely off of their workout on a guy named Darko Milicic. So please don't
but they also missed on a draft pick because of the workout in Donovan Mitchell, and he was lights out in the damn workout. He should have been.
But we're all just talking about how he didn't want him and wanted to trade for him. So, like, perspective.
No, I would have loved taking him over Luke Kennard. God.
Oh yeah, same.
Jesus Christ. But yeah, I get what you're saying. I think the bottom line to this, and I don't think there's really a wrong answer. I really, unless you're going to tell me they should take damn Jalen Duren at 5, maybe I'll tell you you're wrong. But anybody else, I really don't have a problem with. I think Ben Mathurin is someone that needs to be talked about a lot more too. I think in terms of fit, like, if you talk to yourself and say, okay, what fits the best in a backcourt with Cade Cunningham? It's someone who could score off ball, great shooting, and athleticism. And you've seen all of those things with Ben Mathurin. He could do all those things, and he could even play on ball at times. So a lot of guys I'd be happy with, honestly. Keegan Murray probably wouldn't excite me, but again, I could understand it, especially if you trade Jeremy and acquire that 7th pick, then that deal's a lot more attractive. But hey, call me Javi Baez, man. I'm swinging at everything you throw at me. So give me shade and Sharp. I'm swinging.
Dude, that talk about swinging at everything you throw. Yeah, oh my God. Listen, man, I don't. My therapist doesn't get paid enough to talk about the Tigers' woes right now, so we will move on. No, Troy, I think you both bring up a lot of really good points, and I think that's why I'm truly, whatever happens at this draft, I'm not going to be upset at. I'm not gonna, I think I have a pretty good sense of where it's going. I think I have a good sense of who will be there, but we truly will not know until Adam Silver is up there with his bald ass head being the beacon on the New York stage going with the 5th pick. Yeah. So we will not know until that point, but we will be freaking out nonetheless, whoever it is.
And it doesn't help that Troy doesn't let anything out. I mean, he's a safe. Yep. So it's like, unlike past GMs where you kind of have an idea going already into the draft. Like right now, it's a toss up, man. It really is. Even if we had 2 or 1 or 3, it wouldn't even have mattered. It still would have been, questions everywhere.
Yeah. 100%. I'm almost glad that this is the year we did not get the number 1 overall. Like, I'm glad this is the year we fell in the lottery because the decisions get to be made for us.
Last year would have been tough. I'm glad we got the number 1 last year, but this year we got our guy.
Yeah.
Our guy.
Yep. Exactly. We are Gucci. We are golden. But with that, gentlemen, there's been quite a bit of head coaching news throughout the NBA. So as we had mentioned, first of all, let's focus Utah for a second on Quinn Snyder resigning as the Utah Jazz head coach. A lot of questions for this franchise. In my opinion, I don't think they're looking at a Donovan Mitchell trade this summer anyway. I think they're looking at a Rudy Gobert trade. But guys, they're insistent as of right now that they're still looking to build around those 2 guys. So with Quinn Snyder leaving, I have no clue what you do to replace that head coach, because this suddenly became a bad coaching job overnight.
It did, because there's a ceiling with this team.
Yep.
And that's why Quinn Snyder, and I listen, there's maybe some truth to him stepping down, but I believe it was a mutual firing. It was like a fire.
Most
I hate when they come out with he's stepping down. I get it. It's respect for the coach. But with Utah, the Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert pairing, it's over. And like you said, I'm not trading. It's hard because the Utah Jazz are essentially handcuffed, because who do you trade? You have Donovan Mitchell, who's the more attractive piece. You can get a deal for him, and you can get a lot of assets for him. or Rudy Gobert, who is pretty much impossible to trade because he's making nearly $40 million as a center who can't shoot outside of 5 feet. So that's your your issue right there.
Yeah, but you have to trade Rudy Gobert though.
You have to
because if you trade Donovan Mitchell, Troy, Jeff, like we talk about, there is no guarantees that you're going to get a franchise player. I mean, look at some of these guys over the last couple of years. Giannis, he was drafted at the 15th. He was drafted at 15th. Devin Booker was drafted at 15th. Kawhi Leonard was drafted like lower in the top 10. Like, even if you get in the top of the lottery, even if you do a lot of things, there's no guarantee anywhere in that draft order you're going to get a player of that caliber, because a pick before Donovan Mitchell was Luke Kennard. A few picks before Devin Booker was guys like Justice Winslow and Stanley Johnson. Like that's just the truth of this game, is that you truly don't know when you're going to have your opportunity to get a guy like that. The Pistons, they had to wait 50 years to get a number 1 overall pick caliber guy again. So that's just where it's at. That's just how this works. And so, I think for Utah, I think whoever they have as their head coach is the least of their concerns right now. I think they have a lot of stuff they have to figure out. But guys, also, there have been reports that the Hornets brought back Mike D'Antoni for more conversations for their head coaching job. Now, offensively, this could potentially let LaMelo Ball light him on fire. But guys,
God, I hate this.
What a terrible defensive team this would be. Like, all time bad. Like, LaMelo already doesn't care about the defensive end. And then you hire freaking Mike D'Antoni as his head coach?
It's terrible. And before you go, Troy, I just have to say this. I get why, because you see what he was able to do with James Harden. You think LaMelo's game similar. He's a taller guard. You can create for others. He can shoot. Mm-hmm. He can mimic that. But also you have to understand that LaMelo's a player that I feel like needs a little bit of discipline. And that's something that James Borrego brought for, the Charlotte Hornets. I think their next hire, ideally, you'd like a coach, and it's funny saying this. I mean, it's ironic because the guy's in the finals, but Ime Udoka, like, you need a coach that can come in and give them an identity, specifically defensively. I just don't think Mike D'Antoni, he's a recyclable product to me at this point. Like, you're just rehiring a guy that's been fired multiple times. And all respect to Mike D'Antoni, he's a hell of a coach, but I just don't like the fit. I don't. For a place that needs discipline, you're bringing in Mike D'Antoni, who's like, yeah, shoot the ball in 10 seconds, boys. Roll out and let that thing fly.
Well, again, you talk about a predictable ceiling. They have Mike D'Antoni as a predictable ceiling.
Exactly.
I was just gonna say that, Sean. I think of teams like Houston and even New York, right? He was with Carmelo, right, in New York for a little bit. And I mean, those teams kind of had. We always kind of knew what that team's ceilings would be. Those teams' ceilings would be, and it was a star led by role players. But again, defense was never a priority. Winning championships, I don't know, was ever a priority with those types of teams. And I don't know what the Hornets' future is as far as what they see long-term goals with LaMelo, and they're probably going to bring Bridges back. And I guess I don't know what they're trying to build over there. So I can't make a true statement without knowing that.
Right. I mean, offensively, it makes a lot of sense. You put the keys and you really give the keys to LaMelo, and you give him an offensive maestro, and you hope that leads to some playoff runs and some exciting things and things that they haven't had in Charlotte in quite a while. And like, for him, it's probably his best fit in the league.
Yeah.
But for the Hornets, it can really only go one of two ways. This can either spark the franchise into a playoff caliber team for years to come, or keep them in mediocrity because of the fact that Mike D'Antoni's never going to instill those defensive principles, because it's not his priority. It's just not.
Yeah. And I could see why they're looking at Mike D'Antoni for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's an overcorrection of their past head coach. I
Right.
mean, you get someone who's defensive minded, and you're like, well, it didn't work. All right, we'll get an offensively driven head coach. And then number two, maybe it's a bridge head coach. Maybe they feel like Mike D'Antoni's a guy that they can bring in, get them to deep playoff runs, and then the next coach will be able to bring them over to the top. Who knows what their mindset is? But I understand why they're bringing in Mike. Like you said, the ceiling though. I mean, but who knows if he's your coach to get you to your next coach, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. Then it makes more sense.
Right. Yeah, without a doubt. And at the very least, I mean, listen, James Boyega, he wasn't the right, coach for them either. I really don't love the core that they have outside of LaMelo. I mean, it's just it's just a wonky roster right now.
Yeah.
The way it's constructed. They still really need a big man. I wonder if Ayton's in the cards for them as well. I wonder if that's a pursuit that they make. I could really see them being in those talks as well. But yet again, they have to pay Miles Bridges this summer too.
Yeah,
so
focus on him.
Yeah, so they might not be able to be. But another guy who was hired, Darvin Ham for the Lakers. We've talked a little bit about this hire already. However, Darvin Ham brings in former Pistons legend, champion Rasheed Wallace to be an assistant coach. His first assistant coach hire for the Los Angeles Lakers. And guys, at first, I was just like, oh, good for Sheed. Like this is going to be a crap show, but good for Sheed. But it occurred to me by someone tweeting this. I just realized that Rasheed Wallace was brought in for Anthony Davis. And that's why Darvin Ham went out and got Sheed. Now, Troy, I'm gonna go over to you. Knowing Sheed and seeing Rasheed Wallace's past, what kind of impact do you think he can have on this Lakers roster? Because when talking about voices that are going to not let this this locker room have a lot of BS occur, that's one strong voice right there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, Sean. And I think a competitor too is one thing that Sheed was, and what will bring at least that type of energy to this team. Sheed has said many times that he's not in the league to win scoring titles or all defensive teams. He's there to win championships, and that's a type of statement that only a player that I think that truly can mean it is a type of player that's a strong role player, borderline star. And I don't know if a lot of superstars have that mentality in this league today, especially a guy like Anthony Davis. So I think she can bring a competitive nature to that team. I think he can try to instill it to Davis, but at the end of the day, these are grown men. Do they want to listen to the old guy or not? I would if I was in their position. But I think she brings at least that competitor's edge, and that maybe that perspective that a lot of those guys don't have of the flash. It's not about the flash. It's not about the stats. It's literally about winning. And we know as well as anyone last year that was not the goal of this Lakers team, winning. We just had no competitive edge. So he definitely brings a competitive edge. But if we see the Lakers of last year, the Lakers of this year, I don't know how much Sheed can get across. He might grow a few more gray hairs earlier than expected,
And I also think the biggest thing about this Rasheed hire is he's another guy that's done it. Like he's been there. He's won a championship. He was a big reason why they won a championship. He has, deep playoff run experience. He's a winner. So I feel like a guy like that alongside Darvin Ham, another guy who also won at the highest level and is also a former player, that's the best type of environment to bring around LeBron, Russell Westbrook, and Anthony Davis, because now you have former players talking to them rather than Frank Vogel. It's kind of like when they had Jason Kidd there, made things a lot more better. Just having a guy in the room that's played, who's been through a lot of the things you're going through, has a solution to a lot of things you're going through. So I love the hire. I think he can call it a lot of BS. That's what Rasheed's going to do. He's going to let you know if he sees BS. And I think with Russell there and all the drama last year that was in LA, Rasheed can kind of be a repellent to that. I believe so.
For sure. And I think another thing as well, I think Darvin Ham, from what we've heard so far on both his conversations he's had with players, on his introductory press conference that he had as a recording earlier today, where he said he's had several conversations with Russell Westbrook, and the key word in those conversations have been sacrifice. And Darvin Ham went on NBA Today earlier and talked about how I want Russ to get back to guarding at a championship level. And so it seems to me like Darvin Ham has a clear understanding of what went wrong with this team, but also as of right now, seems like he's in a way better position to actually fix it than Frank Vogel ever was. So to me, these are two guys, former players, who both know what it takes to win a championship. Both, funny enough, won the championship for the 03-04 Pistons, but also did it on the heels of defense. And so now you bring in two guys from one of the best defensive teams in the history of the league to coach a team that was not committed to the defensive end last year.
Right.
And you know, especially with the tutelage of those Milwaukee Bucks teams and what Darvin Ham's been involved with there, I certainly expect, as of right now, these voices to be more effective. Now, is this a better team next year? I don't freaking know. Here's the other question. Who's filling out that roster? Because, you know, right now, we really only know they're going to have LeBron, Russ, and Anthony Davis, and then everything else is a question mark.
Yeah.
So as far as what happens with them, I mean, who knows? But as far as the coaching hires, certainly something interesting to see. I mean, always good to see Rasheed Wallace get a job and get a shot for the Lakers as well. So, I mean, it's a bummer. It's the Lakers, but like in all seriousness, good for Sheed, right? So
yeah, who knows? Groom him up.
Yeah.
And when Dwayne retires, slide.
Yeah, hey,
we'll have Rasheed keeping him in line.
I don't know, man. He'd get a lot of technical fouls. He would get a lot of technical fouls. Oh my goodness. But we do have a little bit of breaking news as of recording. This is pretty interesting. The Atlanta Hawks are reportedly going to attempt to pursue Jeremy Grant in a trade this offseason. So add to the list of suitors the Atlanta Hawks. Guys, initial gut reactions. What do you think?
Yeah, what are we gonna get?
What are they picking this year?
Where are they picking? That's a great question.
I know it's soft. I know it's
probably like 17 or 18.
Yeah. But I mean, okay. Atlanta Hawks draft preview.
I guess, hey, the really the good news of all this is now you have competition. So you want more teams. You want the Hawks and the Blazers to be in a bidding war. But, you know, I'm more enticed about that 7th overall pick. I just don't think who knows if it'll get done. You got to be more
Atlanta currently drafts at 16th. I wouldn't get. I mean, I understand. I understand that 7th pick is there. I know Portland's been in the conversation for a while, but I wouldn't get overly tied into any draft pick this year. I mean, even if we can add draft picks in the incoming drafts as well, even if those are there to be trade pieces, you know what I mean? Like there's still value in getting future first round picks.
Yeah, ask Sam Presti that.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I will say. I mean, yeah, you're not wrong, but here's what I will say. The Atlanta Hawks sucked on the defensive end.
Yeah.
So this would make a lot of sense for them, would it not?
Oh, absolutely. This is your Danilo Gallinari basically upgraded in a body shop, you know, and he's just better defensively. I think he's a better offensive player right now. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, give me Jeremy Grant over Gallinari. Absolutely. 100%. And he's younger.
Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. Well, with that, gentlemen, it is that time of the episode. It is time for us to take our journey to end the episode from Mount Rushmore. Sometimes we do a Mount Rushmore. Sometimes we just talk about whatever the hell we want. But Troy, what do you have planned for us today?
I think I do have the most oddly specific Mount Rushmore for us today.
Oh no!
Going on the theme of the finals, the Mount Rushmore of biggest impact role players of the past decade. So the 2010 to 2019. We're doing Mount Rushmore of impact role players in the finals. So I'll start. 2012 Mario Chalmers.
Woo!
A guy who knew how to get buckets, kind of your traditional LeBron teammate. You guys know what that means. I don't really need to define
the punching bag, pretty much.
Yeah, that statement. But he was a guy that he was a first round pick for the Heat, and obviously I think he expanded his game and developed when LeBron came in, and he was a guy that very much contributed to that finals. Their first victory or LeBron's first title against the Oklahoma City Thunder that year. So I think Mario Chalmers was a great impact to that team. I don't know his stats or anything on top of my head, but I just remember that watching that finals, and I know that he was a difference maker. So Mario Chalmers is going to be the first guy on my list.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody can have a list without Robert Horry. Big Shot Rob has to be on someone's damn list, and he's on mine.
Only of the past 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years. So 2010 to 2019.
That's whack. All right, I thought you said 2000. Okay, in that case, I'm going to Iguodala. He's on my Rushmore as well. Finals MVP. Yeah. Even though he held LeBron to 36, 10, and 10. But you know what? I still love Iggy, though. He's a beast.
But a role player to win Finals MVP, I mean, that's big.
Even though Steph probably should have won it, but the fact of the matter is Iggy won it, and he should be in the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah. My role player is Kevin Durant. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm totally kidding. My role player, JJ Barea of the Dallas Mavericks.
Big time.
Game time. JJ Barea. This guy, as the series went on, just was called upon more and more and more, and in arguably the worst series of LeBron James's life, JJ Barea was part of why. This guy came out and was electric on both ends for the Dallas Mavericks, played really hard basketball, but hit some really crucial shots as well. And when you think of role players that were universally loved by a fan base over the past decade, JJ Barea to Dallas was just that. There was just two peas in a pod.
And I think I'm taller than him too. So it's like the thing about we're all taller than him, I think.
There you go.
It's crazy, man.
Without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt, man. I mean, just absolute all around, just great run from him in that finals. Now, I would argue for the fourth. There's a lot of different guys we could go. But in my opinion, I think the fourth one should go to Sean Livingston of the Golden State Warriors.
It was either him or Iggy. I was thinking about Sean.
Yeah, I think
mid-range killer.
Sean Livingston, everyone talks about how much he meant to that Warriors team. There was no Golden State Warriors that we see today without Sean Livingston.
Right. I fully agree.
Yeah, and his defensive value, his stability he brought on the offensive side of the ball. I think Sean Livingston's got to be on any Mount Rushmore of great role players.
Yeah.
In the finals. I mean, that guy was just awesome.
And he hit shots when they needed them. When they needed him to, right? Sure. So
yeah. Absolutely.
And I think that defines a role player. I mean, every team needs a guy that can get a bucket. And I think like all four of the guys we just said have one thing in common. They all got buckets at the right time. And for me, with the finals, that's the best type of role player you need. So
on the biggest moment, the biggest stage.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, but also just to fill in those holes and play defense and get the hustle points and the hustle rebounds. I mean, you look at guys like, I mean, Harrison Barnes might not get a whole lot of love from his time in Golden State. He was replaced by Kevin Durant and now Andrew Wiggins, obviously. But I mean, that was a guy that was really valuable for them as well. You know, there's just a long list of really valuable, important role players. But in even just the past 10 years, it's hard to whittle it down to four. Without a doubt. But speaking of two great role players, Troy, Jeff, you guys are great role players. No, I'm totally kidding. Y'all are the stars of the show. But anyway, Jeff, Troy, We got through another episode, another week. Be sure to follow my guys on Twitter at Troy Sergey44 and at Jeff Iafrady. You can also follow myself at Sean Half Court. And we want to thank y'all so much for tuning in to From Half Court, a podcast where each and every week we talk all things NBA basketball. If you like this, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the podcast. Shout out to our members of From Half Court, the OG, the number one member, Dominique Davis, and we got Justin Jones away below. Be sure to hit that join button down below. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. We'll catch you guys next time from Half Court. Be sure to subscribe and join the From Half Court Army.